Hello, first grade. Today we're going to talk about the Ballet Class by Edgar Degas. So, before we get too far involved in discussing the picture, let's take a minute and just look at the picture. Let's look at this painting and see what our eyes can find. Are you still looking? What do you see? Is there anything that stands out to you? What would it sound like to be in this room right now? I think we've all figured out it's a ballet class, and maybe some of you take ballet. What would it sound like? You can see the girls in the picture have on what's called point shoes, and point shoes have a very hard top to them. So when you stand on top of a point shoe, it might make a bang type noise if you're not being very careful on how you stand. Often ballerinas dance to music. So maybe you would hear music, especially piano music. Well, who are the people in this picture? Did you guess ballerinas? They are. The picture is full of ballerinas, but there's also a couple other people in this picture. What about this guy? Who's he? You're right. He's the teacher. He's instructing the ballerinas. And then if you look way back here, there's some women that aren't dressed like ballerinas. Who could they be? Hmm. When you go to ballet class, or you go to soccer, or you go to karate, does anyone go with you? Sure, maybe mom, dad, grandpa, aunt or uncle, a friend. So maybe there are people there who brought the ballerinas to class. How do you think the people in this painting feel? What gives you some clues as to how they feel? Hmm. This girl back here looks like she's getting a hug. Oh, maybe she's upset. Hmm. These girls look very serious. Look at their faces. Oh, I'm using their faces as a clue as to how they feel. Do you think your face ever gives away how you feel? What about these girls? We can't see their faces, but the way they're standing, are they telling us a little bit about how they maybe feel in this moment? What do you think? So now that we've talked about who the people are in this picture and maybe how they feel and what it sounds like to be in this room and what's going on in Mr. Degas' painting, where would you want to be in this picture? Would you want to be in the back, kind of watching everybody? Would you want to be in this center section where all the action is? It kind of looks like they're moving and dancing. Would you want to be someone up here in the front who's also watching, maybe anticipating their turn to dance? What do you think? I think if it was me in this picture, I would want to be dancing. I would want to be moving as a part of this picture. Why? Because I think that would be fun. And I think it's interesting how the artist portrays that these people are moving by the tilt of the head, the placement of the feet, where they are in space within the room. So, a little bit about our artist before we talk about the painting again. This was done by Edgar Degas. He was born in 1834 and he died in 1917. So he was 83 years old. He was born and spent much of his life in Paris, France. And that is the painting that we're looking at, the Ballet Class, is actually of the Paris Opera House. Now, he was a famous impressionist, but he didn't like to be called an impressionist. He preferred to be called a realist because he liked to paint a moment in time. He liked to show a painting that gave us an idea of what was happening at an exact moment. He wasn't so worried that his painting looked perfect and every detail was just right. He wanted us to see the moment and to feel the moment as it unfolded in front of us. So here's a couple examples of his other paintings. So here's a little girl, and I like to think she's stealing a cookie. And isn't that a moment in time? Have you ever done that? And then here's another picture from a ballet. He liked to paint ballets. And this would be like the final bow at a ballet where the dancer comes out at the end. She's got her bouquet of flowers, and what a moment. She's kind of bowing for her applause from the audience, and the lights are shining on her on stage. And he's giving us that feeling of like, this moment is important, and it's important for what it is. So I'm going to paint it as I see it. And he also really liked to paint horses and hunting scenes. So here's an example of one of his equestrian or horse themed paintings. Now, one of the things that really stood out to me when I looked at this painting was the three areas the artist used when he made his painting. And you may have heard of these words before. They're used in paintings and they're used on stage when you would perform a ballet or an opera or a play. So the first area we're going to talk about is the foreground. And the foreground is the closest part of the picture to the viewer. The figures are the largest and the most detailed because the artist wants you to feel closer to them, like you're looking through a window and the painting is what's on the other side. So in the foreground of this picture are these two ladies, because as you can kind of see, they're layered on top of the other people. They're standing in front of the other dancers. They're bigger. I can see the fan. I can see her flower in her hair and the necklace tie and the bow. She's much more detailed than these ladies way up here in the back. So those were things that I noticed that stood out about the foreground figures in this painting. Is there anything that stands out to you? So now we're going to talk about the second area of this painting. So it's where the man is. It's kind of in the middle of the picture, right? Right? So this is where we talked about the action was happening. Our ballerinas were dancing. They're maybe not as detailed though, right? They're not as big. Oh, so they're a little further away from me when I'm looking into the picture. They're in the middle of the picture, which we call the middle ground. And that is the middle area of a painting between the foreground and what we're going to talk about next, which is the background. The middle ground of a painting is a lot of times where the action happens. Not always, though. In this picture, it is. So I already gave you a clue. The last area of the painting we're going to look at today is way back here. So I kind of zoomed in on it for you a little bit so you could see it. What do you notice about this part of the painting and these people? They're kind of hard to see, aren't they? They're small. Oh, just like if I looked out the window, the things that are farther away from me would be the smallest. I can't see their faces or the details, really. They're kind of blurry. That's because this is the background. It's the part of the painting in the back or the furthest from view of me. So this is where the artist wanted me to look behind the rest of the painting. It's still super important, but it's the background of the painting. So, this concept of using a foreground, a middle ground, and a background is called depth perception. It helps us to see the painting as 3D, even though it's not. It's only a flat painting. So, here is another example where we can see the foreground right up here in the front, on top of everything else, in my face. The midground, a little further back. I can still see it. It's pretty easy to make out what's going on. And way back here, the background, way in the back. Sometimes it's even hard to see the background. It might be blurry because it's so far away. But these pieces help the artist walk a viewer through the painting. It helps them show you how they want your eyes to flow as you look at their painting. So, what we're going to do as our project today is you're going to make your own art using depth perception. So, the first step is, what do you want to draw? Well, do you play soccer? Maybe you can draw a soccer game. Or look around your classroom. I bet there's a foreground, a midground, and a background right now in your room. How about your neighborhood when you go home? Or gymnastics class or dance class, something that you like to do. What would be closest to you in that location? What would be a little further away? And what would be furthest away from you? So you're going to pick one spot and you're going to paint from that spot or draw from that spot. How could you help to show the foreground, the middle ground, and the background in your painting? Remember, the objects that are closer to you will be bigger and more detailed. You can also overlap objects to show that something is in front of or behind something else. So here's some cool examples I found online. This first picture is Jake's soccer game by Christy Vitale. Notice how, I'm going to guess Jake is in orange here. Jake and the opposing player are right in front of us. What part of the picture are they in? You got it. They're in the foreground. And then we have the other players back here. Jake's teammate in orange, and then more opposing players. Oh, we're going to go back. What part of the picture are they in? You're right. They're in the midground of the painting. And then you can kind of see all these trees and the greenery in the back, way behind everybody. What part of the painting is that? You're right, it's the background. So Christy used foreground, midground, and background to paint her picture. Oh, does anyone play baseball? I love baseball. So here we have our catcher, our umpire, and our batter, and they're right up front. They're in front of everybody else. They're so detailed. I can see like the ripples in this jersey. I can see the lines in the mitt. Oh, they're in the what part of the picture? Because they're right up front. You're right, they're in the foreground. And then we've got some mid-ground players here. And then look back here. Oh, what's that called? It's in the way back. You're right, it's the background. Good job. And that's the baseball game by James Chapin. And then over here, a gymnastics class. And we have our gymnast on the balance beam, just like the Olympics this summer. Oh, look at her. She's right up front. She's really close to me. She must be in the foreground. You got it. And then we have another gymnast back here. Maybe she's warming up and getting ready. I can't see her as well. She's not as big. She's behind the other person. She's not in the back, though. What could she be in? The midground. Oh, and then this area back here. Maybe that's trophies. I can't tell what's back there, really. It's in the very back of the painting or picture here. It must be the background. You got it. So you can see in these examples how each artist used the foreground, the middle ground, and the background to help the viewer see the picture, to help it feel 3D so you could tell what was going on within each picture. So now it's your turn. You can use the supplies in your classroom